I was driving late at night. It started raining heavily. The road was dark and empty. I needed a place to sleep. Then I saw an old building on the side of the road. A neon sign was blinking. It said, "Rest Easy Motel." I parked my car and went inside. The front desk was empty. There was a small bell on the counter. I rang it. An old man came out from the back room. He looked pale and tired. He gave me a key and said, "Room 6. Don't go outside after midnight." I took the key and walked down the hallway. It was dark and quiet. Some lights were broken. I reached room 6 and went in. The room was cold. The wallpaper was old and peeling. There was a cracked mirror and an old photo on the wall. In the photo, a family stood together, but their faces looked sad and scared. At 12:03 a.m., someone knocked on my door. Knock, knock, knock. I looked through the peephole. No one was there, but the knocking didn't stop. I opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the floor outside was wet, like someone had been standing there. I went back inside. Suddenly, the TV turned on by itself. It made a loud static noise. Then a soft voice whispered from it, "Help me." I turned it off quickly. Then I looked in the mirror. I saw a shadow behind me. I turned around, but no one was there. I checked under the bed. There was dust and a small pair of children's shoes. But I didn't bring them. I went to the bathroom. The light flickered. Words appeared in the mirror steam. "Get out." But I hadn't used hot water. I got scared. I tried to open the door, but it was stuck. My phone had no signal. I heard footsteps above me, but there was no upstairs. Just the roof. I looked at the photo on the wall again. One person was missing now. It looked like the old man at the front desk. The clock stopped at 3:17 a.m. The lights went off. The room became totally dark. I heard breathing near my ear. A voice whispered, "Stay with us." I hid in the bathroom. Suddenly, I saw a girl's face in the mirror. I pushed open the motel door and stepped inside the reception area. It was cold and strangely silent. The lights were dim, and the air smelled old, like dust and something forgotten. The room was small, with faded wallpaper and old wooden furniture. A single chair sat behind the front desk, but no one was there. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the quiet room. On the counter, I saw a small silver bell. I looked around, then reached out and pressed it.
Ding!
The sharp sound echoed through the empty space. But no one came. I waited. The silence felt heavier now, almost like the building was holding its breath. Then, I heard slow footsteps coming from the back room. After a few seconds, I heard slow, heavy footsteps. An old man came out from the back room. His skin was pale, almost gray, and his eyes looked tired, like he hadn't slept in years. He wore an old brown sweater and moved slowly, like his body hurt with every step. He didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me with a strange smile. Not friendly, not angry, just strange. Then, without asking much, he handed me a rusted room key. It said, "Room 6. As I reached out to take it, he leaned in closer and spoke in a quiet, cold voice. "Don't go outside after midnight." I gave a nervous laugh, thinking it was a joke. But he didn't laugh back. He just stared at me, then turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows behind the desk. I stood there for a moment holding the key. His words echoed in my mind. "Don't go outside after midnight." I stepped into the hallway and closed the reception door behind me. The hallway was long and very dark. Only a few lights were working, and they flickered now and then. Most of the ceiling lights were broken, leaving shadows everywhere. The floor made soft creaking sounds as I walked. The walls were dirty, and the carpet smelled like it hadn't been cleaned in years. My room, room 6, was at the very end of the hallway. Each step I took made me feel more uncomfortable. It was like the hallway was getting colder with every step. When I reached the door, I noticed my hands were shaking a little. I tried to smile at myself. "It's just an old motel," I whispered. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The heater was on, but the room still felt cold, like the cold came from the walls, not the air. Something about the place just didn't feel right. But I was tired. I told myself I'd sleep and leave early in the morning. I looked around the room. It was small, quiet, and very old. The wallpaper was peeling off the walls in long strips. It looked like no one had fixed it in years. Some parts of the wall had stains, and the paint underneath was faded and cracked. Across from the bed, there was a mirror hanging on the wall. It had a long crack running down the middle, like something had hit it hard. My reflection looked strange in the broken glass, twisted and unclear. Next to the mirror, I noticed an old black and white photo in a wooden frame. It showed a family of 4, a man, a woman, and 2 children. They stood outside the same motel many years ago, but something felt wrong. Their faces didn't look happy. They looked sad and almost scared, like they knew something terrible was going to happen. I stared at the photo for a few seconds. Then I looked away. Something about this room made me feel like I wasn't alone. I was lying on the bed, trying to sleep. The room was quiet, and the rain outside had stopped. But the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt heavy, like the air was watching me. I glanced at the clock on the nightstand. It was 12:03 a.m. Suddenly, I heard a sound. It was soft and slow. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. I sat up quickly, my heart beating fast. I waited, hoping it was just my imagination. Knock, knock, knock. It came again. Not loud, not angry, just calm and steady. I looked at the door. There was no sound of footsteps, no voice, just the knocking. Something about it felt wrong. I wasn't expecting anyone, and the old man had warned me, "Don't go outside after midnight." I slowly got out of bed and walked toward the door. The knocking was still going. Knock, knock, knock. I leaned forward and looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was completely empty.
No shadows.
No movement. No one standing outside. But the sound didn't stop. Knock, knock, knock. My stomach tightened. I stepped back from the door, confused and nervous. How could someone knock but not be there? The air felt colder now. I stood still, staring at the door, unsure what to do. Then the knocking suddenly stopped. The silence was worse than the sound. My hand was shaking, but I had to know. I slowly reached for the doorknob and unlocked it. The door creaked as I pulled it open. I looked into the hallway. It was completely empty. No people.
No footsteps.
No sound. Just darkness, broken lights, and that same cold feeling. But then I looked down. The carpet just outside my door was wet, as if someone had been standing there in the same spot for a long time. 2 dark footprints had soaked into the floor. They weren't mine. I stepped back quickly and closed the door. I locked it again. My heart was racing. Someone or something had been there, and now it was gone. I took a deep breath and stepped back into the room. I locked the door again, double-checking it. My hands were cold, and my heart was still beating fast. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to calm down. But just as I was about to lie down, the TV turned on by itself. The screen lit up with loud static, just black and white noise. I hadn't touched the remote. It was still on the table. The sound was sharp and strange. Then, slowly, the static faded just a little, and I heard a soft voice. A woman's whisper, weak and broken. "Help me." The words sent chills down my spine. I stared at the screen, frozen. The voice didn't come again.
Just more static.
I picked up the remote with shaking hands and turned off the TV. But the silence after that felt even worse. I pressed the button and turned off the TV. The room went quiet again. But the silence didn't feel normal, it felt wrong. I stood up and walked toward the bathroom sink. As I passed the mirror on the wall, something caught my eye. I stopped. In the mirror, I saw a shadow standing right behind me. It wasn't clear, just a dark shape, tall and still. Too close. My body froze. I quickly turned around, my heart pounding, but no one was there. The room was empty, just me and the quiet. I looked back at the mirror. The shadow was gone, but now I didn't feel alone anymore. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was in the room with me. I kept looking around, checking every corner. Then I thought, what if something was under the bed? I slowly got down on my knees. The floor was cold against my hands. I lifted the edge of the blanket and looked underneath. It was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung in the corners. But then I saw something strange. A small pair of children's shoes. Old. Worn out. One shoe was lying on its side. They looked like they hadn't been touched in years. I felt a chill run down my back. I didn't bring them, and there was no reason they should be there. I pulled back quickly and stood up. My hands were shaking. Something was very wrong with this room. I walked slowly into the bathroom, still shaken from what I found under the bed. The light above the sink flickered, buzzing softly like it was about to go out. I reached for the switch to turn it off and on again. When the light came back, I looked up and stopped. There was writing on the mirror, words written in steam. It said, "Get out." Big, uneven letters stretched across the glass, like someone had written them with their finger. But I hadn't used the shower. There was no hot water running. The room wasn't even warm. So where did the steam come from? I stepped back slowly. My chest felt tight. It was like the room itself was trying to warn me. Something didn't want me here. I couldn't take it anymore. The whisper from the TV, the shadow in the mirror, the shoes, the writing. It was all too much. I grabbed my bag and rushed to the door. I turned the knob quickly and pulled hard, but the door wouldn't open. It felt like it was locked from the outside. I pulled again, harder this time. Nothing. My heart started racing. I took out my phone to call someone. Anyone. No signal. No bars.
No Wi-Fi.
Nothing. I walked around the room, holding the phone up in different places. Still nothing. I was completely cut off, alone, and trapped. A deep fear started to grow in my chest. I wasn't just stuck in a motel room. I was stuck in something else. I sat back down on the bed, trying to think clearly. My hands were shaking, and my breath felt short. I kept telling myself, it's just an old place, maybe it's in my head. Then, I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, and steady. Walking across the ceiling. Step, step, step. I looked up. The sound was clear. Someone or something was moving above me. But then I remembered. The motel didn't have a second floor. Just a roof. My eyes widened. Who could be walking up there? And why did the footsteps sound like they were coming closer? Right above my bed? I sat perfectly still, listening. Step, step, stop. The sound stopped. Right over my head. I stood up, heart pounding, still shaken by the footsteps above. I turned to look around the room again, just in case. That's when my eyes landed on the old photo on the wall. I froze. Something about it looked different. I walked closer. It was the same black and white photo I saw earlier. The family standing in front of the motel. But now, one person was missing. Earlier, there had been 4 people. Now, only 3 remained. The father was gone. And as I looked closer, my chest tightened. The face that was missing, it looked exactly like the old man at the reception desk. The one who gave me the key. The one who warned me not to go outside after midnight. But why was he gone from the photo? Where had he gone? Or worse, what was he really? I sat on the bed, staring at the photo, my mind spinning. The silence in the room felt heavier with every second. I turned to look at the small clock on the nightstand. The red numbers glowed in the dark. 3:17 a.m. Then, right at that moment, The clock froze. The numbers stopped blinking. Everything became still. And then, the lights went out. A loud click. Then complete darkness. The room was now pitch black. I couldn't see my hands, the walls, nothing. Only the sound of my own breathing. And the feeling that something else was in the room with me. The air grew colder. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just waited in the dark, wondering what would happen next. I sat frozen in the dark. I couldn't see anything, just black all around me. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it. Then, I felt it.
Breath.
Warm and soft, right next to my ear. But I was completely alone. No one should have been that close. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. And then I heard a whisper. A cold, quiet voice, right beside me. Stay with us. The voice didn't sound angry. It sounded lonely, like someone who had been waiting a long time. I jumped up from the bed, gasping for air. But the room was still dark. And whatever was beside me was now gone. Or hiding. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran into the bathroom and closed the door behind me. I didn't lock it. My hands were shaking too much. I sat on the cold floor, trying to breathe. I kept telling myself it was just a dream. Just my imagination. The flickering light above me buzzed again. The mirror above the sink was foggy. I looked up and froze. A girl's face appeared in the mirror. She looked about 10 years old. Her long hair was wet and messy. Tears ran down her pale cheeks.
She didn't speak.
She just stared at me through the glass, crying. I turned around quickly, but no one was behind me. I looked back at the mirror. She was gone. I stayed in the bathroom for hours, too scared to move. The night felt endless. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow felt alive. Then, finally, a faint light started to come through the small window. Sunrise. I slowly stood up and walked back into the main room. It was still cold and silent. I looked at the door, hoping, praying it would open.
Click.
The lock turned by itself. I didn't wait. I grabbed my bag and rushed out of the room. The hallway felt different in the morning light. Still dark, still broken but quiet. I stepped outside into the fresh air. The sky was gray, the ground still wet from the storm. But when I turned to look back at the motel, it looked older. The paint was peeling. Windows were cracked. The neon sign was broken. It didn't look like the place I had entered last night. It looked almost abandoned, like no one had stayed there in years. After I left the motel, I drove straight to the nearest town. I went to the police station and told them everything. The strange noises, the shadow, the girl in the mirror, the voice that whispered to me. The officer listened quietly, then looked at me with a confused face. He asked me to repeat the name of the motel. Rest Easy Motel, I said. He paused. Then he said something I'll never forget. That place burned down 30 years ago. No one has stayed there since. Room 6 is where a family died in the fire. I didn't know what to say. I had just been there. I saw it. I slept in that room. But they showed me the old news reports. It was real. Now I try to forget. But even today, when I close my eyes at night, I still hear it. Knock, knock, knock. Just like that night. In my dreams, Room 6 is still waiting for me.